We are witnessing a quiet yet momentous geopolitical turning point from the Northern Hemisphere. No gunfire, no protests, no fiery declarations on international stages. Just a single ship, silently departing the port of Kitimat in British Columbia on the early morning of June 30th, 2025. On board the gas-log Glasgow were over 2.6 million tons of liquefied natural gas, LNG, chilled to minus 162 degrees Celsius, ready to cross the Pacific and make its way to Asia. But the real shock wasn't in the cargo itself, it was in the direction it was headed. For the first time in modern history, a shipment of Canadian LNG wasn't heading south to the border that used to be the only gateway for the country's natural gas to flow into the US economy. Instead, it was sailing straight toward Japan, South Korea, and China, nations hungry for clean and stable energy. A quiet but sharp pivot, signaling that Canada is finally ready to step out from the shadow of its giant neighbor. For more than 3 decades, Canada had placed nearly all its trust and economic lifeline in the United States. Energy, agriculture, industrial goods, everything flowed southward as if by default. But then the world began to shift. The rise of protectionism, political shocks, and especially the return of Donald Trump with his unpredictable policies all forced Ottawa to confront a fundamental question. Is this dependence still safe? It was at that very moment that LNG Canada, a project a decade in the making, emerged as a new strategic anchor. Not just an export hub, but a symbol of independence, a silent declaration that Canada is ready to break from its traditional orbit and open a new door to the world. And from that moment on, the relationship between two nations once considered the closest allies in North America began to shift. When pipelines were no longer the only route, when the ocean became the bridge connecting Canada to Asia instead of the US. That's when a bigger question had to be asked. What happens when an economic ally starts to have other options? When trade flows shift, and with them, so does power. What follows is a deeper story of geopolitics, energy, and strategic calculations never before revealed, all starting from something that once seemed so simple: natural gas. Canada once believed its energy relationship with the United States was a guiding star, an unspoken pact between two neighboring nations. Every day, billions of cubic feet of natural gas quietly flowed through hundreds of kilometers of underground pipelines, from the fields of Alberta to the dense network of power plants stretched across the eastern United States. It wasn't just a stream of energy, it was a symbol of trust, of enduring partnership, and of pride in North America's economic strength. But in the world of geopolitical maneuvering, nothing is permanent, and those seemingly unshakable pipelines soon became the most fragile link in the chain. It wasn't until 2024, when Canada's total natural gas exports hit 8.8 billion cubic feet per day, worth nearly $8 billion, that a painful truth began to emerge behind the numbers: near total dependence on a single market. As trade tensions flared and political costs suddenly morphed into production costs, economic gains quickly buckled under a wave of tariffs. In early 2025, the Trump administration's decision to impose a 25% tariff on Canadian goods, including a direct 10% hit on energy products, struck like lightning out of a clear sky, forcing Ottawa to reevaluate a relationship long thought to be set in stone. The shift didn't come with loud proclamations, but from the cold, hard data buried in financial statements and trade contracts. Canadian energy companies, from the giant Petro-Canada to smaller independent producers, suddenly had to recalculate every cost, every investment line in a game that was no longer fair. They realized that when an ally can become a rival with a single executive order, they had to prepare for self-reliance, or risk staying forever under economic dominance. And amid that storm, LNG Canada emerged as a new beacon, not just because of its sheer scale, 40 billion Canadian dollars, 2 liquefaction trains with a total capacity of 14 million tons per year, but because of its strategic significance. Built to leverage clean hydroelectric power, equipped with emission reduction technologies, and designed specifically to reach markets never before accessible, this project became the answer to a vital question: where do we go when we can no longer head south? Step by step, from the port infrastructure that welcomes tankers to the methane monitoring systems in place, every piece pointed toward a single goal: to give Canada the power not just to export, but to stake its claim on the global energy map. Now, as LNG Canada begins operations, this is no longer just about economic calculations. It's a living testament to a desire for independence, a silent political message sent to Washington. Canada can stand on its own without relying solely on pumping gas through pipelines into the US. This shift doesn't just redraw trade routes, it reshapes the geopolitical landscape as energy power moves across the Pacific toward Asian nations hungrier than ever for clean and dependable supply. And it's from this point, as Canada reveals a new path, that we realize a door to the ocean has opened before us, a way out of traditional constraints into a wholly different chapter. One where shipping gas by sea isn't just faster, cheaper, or more flexible, but also beyond the reach of any tariff policy. That door leads us out through the Pacific, and that is where the next chapter of this story begins. From Kitimat, a quiet coastal town in British Columbia, LNG ships are no longer just symbols of commerce, they become emblems of liberation. Liberation from dependence on fixed pipelines running to the US, liberation from political constraints imposed by a single market, and more importantly, liberation from the outdated mindset that Canada is merely the backyard energy supplier of North America. Pipelines are bound by geography. Sea routes are not. From Kitimat, an LNG vessel can reach Japan's Yokohama port in just 10 days, at least 30% faster than the Panama Canal route used by tankers departing from the Gulf of Mexico. For Asian markets, where delivery time and reliability are critical, this is a strategic advantage unmatched by any other Western exporter. Japan didn't hesitate. Right after the first shipment, Tokyo committed to purchasing an additional 20 million tons of LNG annually from Canada, starting in 2026. This isn't just a number. It's a clear signal that Japan no longer wants to depend on the unstable supply from the Middle East or deal with pipeline disputes involving Russia. Likewise, South Korea, home to world-leading electronics and shipbuilding industries, announced plans to expand its national LNG storage capacity by 50% over the next decade, with a strong preference for supplies from North America, especially Canada. Even China, despite ongoing political tensions with the West, couldn't ignore the opportunity to secure a cleaner, long-term, and politically lower-risk energy source. Beijing has signed a series of 20-year contracts to buy LNG from Canada as part of its broader effort to phase out coal and reduce reliance on Russian gas. From a country once known only for sending gas south, Canada is now repositioning itself as a trusted and green energy provider for the entire Asia-Pacific region. A new energy corridor is quietly taking shape, stretching across the Pacific from Kitimat to Tokyo, Seoul, and Shanghai, carrying not just natural gas, but also ambition and strategic alignment. It opens up a new space for cooperation, free from American tariff policy and unbound by traditional geopolitical alliances. But to go further, to be more than just a gas seller and become a true energy partner, Canada needs more than favorable routes and willing buyers. It needs a quiet yet decisive strength: technology. Because in the 21st century, where every trade deal is judged through the lens of sustainability, clean, green, and transparent, technology is no longer optional. It's essential. And in Kitimat, where massive electric compressors hum and methane is monitored down to the parts per million, technology isn't a backstage detail. It's the key that puts Canada center stage. In Kitimat, every cubic meter of liquefied natural gas is more than just a product of natural resources. It's the crystallization of advanced technology, sustainable thinking, and a global ambition rooted in responsibility. LNG Canada is unlike any facility that has ever existed on North American soil. It is a cutting-edge technological complex where each liquefaction train is powered entirely by hydroelectricity, a renewable energy source that emits virtually no carbon. While most LNG plants around the world still rely on fossil fuels for operations, Canada has chosen a different path: quieter, more costly, but profoundly strategic in the long term. Here, high-capacity electric compressors, built with leading-edge technology from Japan and the US, run continuously under the watch of one of the world's most advanced methane control systems. Even the smallest leaks are detected, inspected, and addressed according to carbon-neutral standards. This isn't just about reducing emissions. LNG Canada is establishing a new benchmark in the energy export sector, one that measures not only the volume sold, but also the carbon footprint of every single ton of gas. That's a crucial factor for customers in Asia. Japan and South Korea, two advanced, detail-conscious economies, no longer care solely about price or quantity. They assess the entire life cycle of the product, where the gas was extracted, how it was transported, and whether it contributes meaningfully to the global fight against climate change. In a world increasingly governed by ESG criteria, environmental, social, and governance, every technical metric becomes a strategic statement. But perhaps what truly sets LNG Canada apart isn't just the technology. It's the understanding that no technical progress can be sustainable without social consensus. From that foundation, they've created something rare, transforming Indigenous communities from outsiders into active partners. From a region once overlooked, Kitimat has become a place where Indigenous voices are not only heard, but fully integrated into the project's development framework. And that is where the real story of sustainable growth begins. Amid the untouched wilderness of British Columbia, where snow-capped mountains meet the deep blue sea, the Haisla Nation has lived for thousands of years, in harmony with the forests, rivers, and traditions. They don't need maps to follow the migrating fish, nor GPS to trace ancient trails. Yet for decades, the nation's development dreams seemed to pass by them, never stopping, never including them. That was until LNG Canada arrived, not just as a massive industrial project, but as a turning point in history. Instead of being merely consulted, the Haisla became shareholders. Instead of being seen as obstacles to progress, they became the driving force behind social consensus. This active participation wasn't a symbolic gesture. It was built into the very structure of the project. And from that foundation, a new chapter began. Cedar LNG, the world's first liquefied natural gas facility to be majority owned by an Indigenous community. This isn't just a story about equity or profit. It's a declaration that sustainable development models must include the human element, especially the people who have stewarded this land for generations. When they are empowered to decide their future, when they benefit directly from the resources on their ancestral lands, conflict dissolves and trust is restored. Their presence in every stage, from design to environmental assessment to operations, becomes a powerful, soft weapon that no technology could ever replace. The partnership model between government, industry, and Indigenous communities has turned Canada into an admired example on the world stage. In an era where global investors see ESG not as a bonus, but as a baseline requirement, social consensus has become a competitive advantage. Major funds from Europe to Asia are eager to invest in a country that knows how to balance progress with respect for heritage. And in this story, the Haisla are no longer bystanders. They are co-creators. But now, as the door to the Asian market swings open and Canada takes its first confident steps on the global energy stage, an unavoidable truth comes into view. The race has begun. Canada is not the only one who sees the potential of LNG. The US, Qatar, and Australia are already in position, ready to compete for every contract, every client, every billion-dollar shipment. And the dream of making Canada an energy export powerhouse will not come true without one essential quality: the grit to play and win in a fiercely competitive global game. The global LNG market is far from a level playing field. It's a race of speed, endurance, and trust, where energy powerhouses are willing to invest tens of billions of dollars to secure a place at the top. Canada, with its frigid climate, complex terrain, and high construction costs, enters this race not as a seasoned contender, but as an ambitious newcomer, carrying both immense potential and formidable challenges. Standing in its way are three heavyweight rivals: the United States, Qatar, and Australia. Qatar, the small kingdom with massive gas reserves, has long been the undisputed champion of the LNG world. Its North Field expansion aims to boost export capacity to 126 million tons per year by 2030. Qatar benefits from a prime geographic location near both Asian and Middle Eastern markets, low production costs, and a web of long-term contracts secured over past decades. However, it now faces mounting pressure to lower emissions and improve its global image amid ongoing scrutiny over human rights and environmental practices. The United States, with facilities stretched along the Gulf of Mexico, not only boasts abundant output, but unmatched flexibility. Its spot price contracts allow for shipments based on timing and market pricing, a model favored by dynamic buyers like India and Europe. Though constrained by port infrastructure and the bottleneck of the Panama Canal, America's low costs and sheer scale make it a formidable racer, always poised for a breakout. Australia, meanwhile, focuses on offshore extraction and strategic ties with Southeast Asia. It doesn't compete on volume, but on stability and proximity to major consumers like Indonesia, Vietnam, and Singapore. With decades of experience and fully developed infrastructure, Australia is targeting the mid to high-end market, where quality and consistency reign supreme. In this context, Canada must prove it offers more than just potential. It must demonstrate resolve and long-term vision. The proposed second phase of LNG Canada, which would double capacity to 28 million tons per year, will demand tens of billions more in investment, a new logistics network, and the support of an entire political and social system. From building pipelines across provinces to upgrading ports and streamlining environmental approvals, every step must be deliberate and responsible. Yet amid these challenges, Canada holds something not every nation can claim: trust. In a world rocked by instability, where energy often comes entangled with political turmoil, from Middle East conflicts to the Russia-Ukraine war, Canada stands out as a symbol of stability, transparency, and neutrality. International buyers aren't just purchasing gas, they're investing in a nation that carries minimal geopolitical risk, is free from military alliances, and upholds a reliable democratic framework. On that foundation, the dream of transforming Canada into a global energy power no longer feels out of reach. But this is precisely where the country faces its greatest test: how to accelerate on the world energy map while preserving its core values, from environmental stewardship to Indigenous partnerships, from social consensus to public trust. The answer to that question won't just shape the future of Canada's LNG industry, it will write the next chapter in the country's role on the global stage. Because at that intersection, where ambition meets responsibility, lies the true convergence of national interest and global aspiration. Amid the spotlight of multi-billion-dollar contracts and a rising position on the global energy map, Canada still faces a pressing question: how can it stay true to its identity while reaching out to the world? When natural gas becomes a tool of foreign policy, when every ton of LNG carries both the promise of development and the burden of emissions, the balance between national interest and global ambition is no longer abstract. It becomes a daily, tangible choice embedded in every policy and investment decision. Canada, long known as a green, responsible nation centered on people, cannot chase growth figures at the expense of social trust. Indigenous communities must be protected, coastal ecosystems preserved, and the small towns near export ports must feel they are part of this journey to the world, not casualties left behind. Because if that trust begins to crack, if citizens start to doubt that the benefits are shared fairly, then even the most strategic gains can quickly turn into political liabilities. The federal and provincial governments, therefore, must learn to walk a tightrope, a fragile line between growth and sustainability. That requires transparency in managing resource revenues, clearly defined roadmaps for emission reduction, and above all, a guarantee that everyone, from Indigenous groups to local workers, receives a fair share of the energy economy. Because true success isn't just about delivering LNG to the world, it's about ensuring Canadians believe they are part of something greater. If Canada can achieve that, if it can maintain a sustainable heartbeat beneath the roar of LNG tankers, then Kitimat will be more than just a commercial launchpad. It will become a symbol of a new energy development model, one that is globally ambitious, yet deeply rooted in its values. And from there, a new beginning could unfold, one that may usher in an entirely new era. On June 30th, 2025, the Gaslog Glasgow departed from the port of Kitimat, carrying more than just liquefied natural gas. It carried a quiet yet powerful message. Canada is no longer the energy shadow trailing behind the United States. That moment marked the turning point for a nation that had once been almost entirely dependent on the Southern Pipeline, now choosing its own path, crossing vast oceans, reaching new markets, and redefining itself on the global geopolitical map. Without fanfare or spectacle, Canada stepped into a new era. Calm, but full of conviction. That shipment became the symbol of a quiet yet profound transformation, from dependency to autonomy, from a single market focus to a global network, from a passive supplier to a chosen strategic partner. In an increasingly unstable world where trade relationships can be politicized in an instant, Canada's stability, transparency, and commitment to sustainable development have become priceless assets, ones few energy exporting nations can claim. But true leadership isn't about being the fastest or the biggest. Leadership is the ability to inspire through values, and that's exactly what Canada is doing. From integrating clean technologies into LNG production to working with Indigenous communities as co-creators, not bystanders. Kitimat, once a quiet seaside town, is now becoming the heart of a much bigger dream, an energy development model grounded in respect, responsibility, and long-term vision. As one LNG ship after another leaves port, heading toward Japan, South Korea, or China, what Canada is exporting isn't just energy, it's credibility, it's a model, it's a message that there is another way, one that doesn't destroy the environment, divide communities, or buy trust, yet still reaches global heights. And perhaps what's most admirable is the way Canada chooses to lead, not through soft power, nor by sheer force, but through the steady resolve of a country that knows exactly who it is and is committed to staying that course, even if it sometimes means walking alone. If today's story gave you a new perspective, a different kind of inspiration about energy's role in the modern world, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. We'll continue to accompany you on deeper journeys into the world's geopolitical shifts, where decisions made oceans away can ripple into our everyday lives.